In 1940, two fighters became symbols of one of the most important air battles in history: the Spitfire and the Bf-109. When Germany turned its attention toward Britain in 1940, the RAF needed more than a fast fighter. It needed an aircraft capable of defending the skies over its own country. Enter the Spitfire. Built around a powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine and a distinctive elliptical wing, it was designed for one job: to climb fast, turn tight, and win in a dogfight over home ground. Across the Channel, the Luftwaffe had one of the most capable fighters of the era, the Messerschmitt Bf-109. Fast, heavily armed, and built for the doctrine of the time, but about to be pushed further from home than it was ever designed to fly. Every Spitfire began as blueprints in sheet metal inside British factories working around the clock. Skilled hands riveted the elliptical wing panel by panel, a shape so complex it slowed production and nearly cost the aircraft its place in the RAF. But that wing gave the Spitfire a turning radius nothing else in the sky could match, a trade the designers were willing to make. In Germany, the Bf-109 rolled off the line by the thousands. Its airframe was simpler, its wing narrower, its construction built for speed of manufacture as much as speed in the air. Where the Spitfire was refined for the dogfight, the Bf-109 was refined for the mission: escort bombers in and get pilots into the fight as fast as possible. On paper, the two aircraft were close matches. The Spitfire could outturn almost anything in the sky. The Bf-109 could outdive and, in the early war years, outclimb it. Their armament differed too. The Spitfire's 8 rifle-caliber machine guns against the Bf-109's mix of cannon and machine gun, a heavier punch per hit. Neither aircraft was simply better. One was built to defend a coastline, the other was built to attack one, and that single difference in purpose would decide everything that followed. By July 1940, that difference was put to the test. Wave after wave of German bombers crossed the Channel, escorted by Bf-109s, with one goal: destroy the RAF on the ground and in the air before any invasion could begin. But Britain had something the Luftwaffe hadn't fully accounted for: a chain of radar stations along its coast, feeding warnings to fighter command minutes before the bombers even crossed the water. Spitfires and Hurricanes scrambled again and again, sometimes 4 or 5 times in a single day, meeting the bombers and their escorts directly over the ground they were built to protect. In the air, it came down to seconds. A Spitfire pilot who could turn inside a Bf-109 lived. A Bf-109 pilot who dove away fast enough lived too. This was not a battle of machines alone. It was a battle of pilots learning in real time exactly what their aircraft could and couldn't do. But the Bf-109 carried a weakness that no amount of skill in the cockpit could fix. Flying from bases in northern France, it arrived over England already burning through its fuel reserve. Once in combat, pilots had only minutes to spare, by some accounts as little as 10, before they had to turn for home or risk not making it back across the Channel at all. Pilots watched their fuel gauges as closely as they watched the sky. That single limitation reshaped the entire campaign. German bombers, deep over English territory, were often left without escort exactly when they needed it most, their fighters forced to break away and run for fuel while the bombers pressed on alone. It was not a flaw anyone could see from the outside. It was a number on a gauge, and it was quietly deciding the outcome of a battle for the skies over an entire country. Through August and into September 1940, the pattern repeated across the English countryside. Aircraft climbing at dawn, combat over the coast and the Channel, aircraft returning, some intact, some damaged, some not returning at all. Losses mounted on both sides, but for the RAF, radar, ground control, and the Spitfire's turning advantage meant that for every aircraft lost, replacements and pilots kept arriving. For the Luftwaffe, operating at the very edge of its range, that same equation grew harder every week. By the time the campaign wound down that autumn, neither fighter had won the battle alone. It had been decided by range, by radar, by ground crews working through the night to keep damaged aircraft flying again by morning, and by pilots on both sides pushed to the limit of what their machines, and they themselves, could endure. They were designed for different purposes, flown by different pilots, and fought on opposite sides of history. But both became legends of aviation, two of the most iconic fighters ever built, remembered more than 8 decades later as symbols of the battle that shaped the outcome of the war. Every pilot in this story had seconds to decide. Subscribe and tell us, could you have made that call?